Session, I wanted to get to how to create a proposed terrain from your model, and then also how to do cross sections and earthwork as well. And I think that should that should fill up the entire time slot. Um, so I guess to start out with, if we go to our template library, then here's the template that we've been using for this project. And really, the main thing that you need to know for to create a proposed terrain is, I think someone's joining. Let me make sure they get in. So really, the main thing that you need to know when creating a proposed terrain is which points in the template you want to include in your proposed terrain. So actually, I haven't done a proposed terrain when we're widening to the outside, but I think it's okay just to show or just to include the centerline point in the proposed terrain, so you can see how it processes. So and the command that we're going to use to create the proposed terrain comes from the terrain model, and it's the create corridor alternate surfaces. And the way you choose your points for the proposed terrain is by either clicking on the point and choosing an alternate surface here. So if you see there's nothing here, but if we type whatever you want, top surface, then now if we go to another point, then we'll be able to see this and we'll be able to choose that surface. And but let's say you have a whole bunch of points that you want to add to that surface. It kind of gets annoying when you have to click inside of each point properties. So I recently found a cool way how to select all your points and then choose the surface that you want. So if you go to Tools, then you can use Apply Alternate Surface to Points. And here we can choose exactly that, right? So here are all my points in my template so far. So, and these are the points that are associated to this alternate surface. So in this case, I need to add the right cut, which is here, the left fill, right EOP. Need to add the center line, left cut, shoulder, shoulder one. And this should be all the points that we need for our proposed surface. So if I click the top surface now, the alternate surface that you want it on, want these points to be a part of, then you just hit apply. And now if we go into any of these points, then they have this alternate surface populated. So in order to, well, let's say you wanted to double check just to make sure that you picked all the points. And just by looking at it here, I know I missed these 2 points. I forgot about this berm here. So but the way you can check is if you go to active template and you go to alternate surface and you click on the alternate surface, then you can see which points are included in this alternate surface. So as I mentioned before I got to this point, I realized that I had left these out. So we can either do it this way, apply alternate surface to a point, just how I showed. This is this. So now once we do that, it should include those points. And I also missed this point too. So can come back here, click the surface, right? So now we can make sure again. So now we can check, and everything that's on our top surface that we want for our proposed 10. So these are the points that are gonna show up in the proposed 10. So I guess there's also some features here that can allow you to quickly define points and components if you needed to. So you can use that. You can use these if you have a whole bunch of points that you want to select the feature definition or the component to where you don't need to go inside the point properties every time, because it can be a lot. So now I'm gonna close and save this template, and can someone tell me what we need to do in order to make sure the corridor knows that the changes that I just made, or how do we apply the changes that we just made to the corridor? So you need to make sure that when you make changes to the template that you synchronize with the library. It's really key, because if not, when I try to create my proposed surface, actually let me go back actually. So I'm gonna, and then let's actually try to create a proposed surface and let's see what happens. Because I want to see what it's going to do when there's no points applied to the surface in our template. So so one thing to know about when you're using this command is the proposed 10 is going to be on the level of whichever symbology is here. So when I do my proposed 10s, I usually pick there's a terrain level here. I think it's terrain design. This is the one that I like to use. So if I pull up my 3D view, it's going to happen when so let's go here, create corridor, alternate surfaces. So if you notice nothing happened, because before I made changes to the template, there were no alternate surfaces in that template. So what I'm hoping is when I synchronize this with the library, then I rerun the create corridor alternate surfaces, that it's gonna create it. It should create it. So let's see. There we go. So now now we have our proposed terrain here. And so this is just like any other terrain. You can click on it, and we can see that the name of this terrain defaults to the corridor, whatever the corridor name is, and then it has a period, and then it's whatever the alternate surface name is. So when you're making proposed terrains, you won't need to type in exactly the like you wouldn't say main lane top surface for your alternate surface. You just say top surface, and then be sure to name your corridor whichever, if it's a main lanes or if it's a frontage road or if it's a ramp or anything like that. So this is just like any terrain model in OpenRoads. So we can export this if we wanted to in these formats. And if we go to the section view, then we can see that it does follow the top surface here. But for some reason it's not showing there. That's weird. But I think that's fine for now. So we see that here's our proposed terrain, and let's see. So if we were to forget a point, let's say we were to forget this this point in the template, then it would not. Then there would be just a straight line here from the shoulder to the end condition. And what this is over here is just the interpolation from that the software sometimes solves when it's creating proposed terrains. And in the first or second session, I demonstrated how to get rid of these triangles. So if you just watch that video, then it'll be easy to clean up this proposed terrain. So what I would do is I would clean it up before I export it and send it to Drainage or anyone else that you're working with. And what's cool about these terrain models too is like you can hover the terrain model and it gives you the elevation and actually the slope of the triangle too. And then if you notice, if I move my cursor on the terrain model, then it updates the elevation wherever that is. It's pretty cool. And another cool thing I wanted to show y'all is if I turn on, okay, so here is my terrain model in the plan view, and just let this load real quick. So here's the terrain model. So if I change these, or if I click on the terrain model and I click on properties, then I have these options to choose from. Right, so this is really powerful here. So we could even choose a feature definition if we wanted to. Let's see what happens when I do that. We'll say design contours, and but okay, let's see. For some reason that disappeared, so let me just keep it here. And let's see what this is displaying. So this has the triangles on. And another cool thing is you can, if you, let's see what happens when we select the contours. So yeah, this is kind of, this looks kind of weird, but let me, let me turn those contours off. And then let me turn off some of these other elements so we can actually see. Oh, this is in the file. Okay. So turn off this geometry control. Turn off the super elevation. Maybe turn off. It's fine. Okay, so I'm gonna turn everything off except for the terrain, so we can see what's happening here. Okay, so I have my terrain. If I click on it and change these settings, then I can have contours. And when you clean up the terrain using the method that I showed you in the first 2 sessions, I believe, then all this will get fixed and it'll go away. But as you can see, we have our contours here, and we can select the contour and it'll give us the elevation of that contour. So it's pretty cool. Then here you can also see that this super elevated section here on the curve, and then it transitions back. And another really cool thing here is you can, I don't know if you noticed here, but there's an option for to have flow arrows. So if for some reason you want to know which way the water is going, then you can. And this makes sense here too, because this is 4816, 4817, and the arrow's pointing down that way. So it's pretty cool. And if you have a feature definition on your terrain, then these arrows will show up bigger. So and then here on the super elevated section, you can see that it points down that way. So that's pretty cool to know to easily find the 0% cross-up. You can use the flow line or the flow arrows here. And you can do low points and high points. Let's see what it gives us. Yeah, I always had a problem with the low points and high points, so I mainly don't use that one. But the contours, triangles, and flow arrows, those are the main ones that I use. So if I go back to what it originally was, then actually I think I'm going to delete this proposed terrain, and then we'll start getting into how to cut cross sections. So if we go back to the location, where is it? Here. I believe it's this 3. So how to do cross sections and earthwork. So once you have your model done, right? That's the main thing that you need for cross sections and earthwork. You need to have the model exactly how you want it to show up on your cross sections. So to do cross sections, you'll come here, corridor modeling, and you will come to create cross sections here. So it's going to say locate the alignment. So here's the alignment that I want to use. And then you'll get this box here. And you can fill out this information. Let's do some quick ones, and then so we can see how it works. So I'm gonna use simple AccuDraw to find the station in this area. So let's just do 960 to 970. Let's see what happens. So here we can choose our station, 960. We can choose our offsets, left and right of the center line. We choose our interval and the vertical exaggeration. So, and here are some of the other settings that you can use to cut cross sections, and I guess it can be time consuming finding out what everything does, but I think you're probably going to need at least one person to dive in and know how to make changes to these settings, because I mean, just to make sure that the cross sections are showing up on the sheets correctly. So if you do already have settings, then you come to preferences, and then you would pick whichever settings apply to whichever cross sections you need. So I know in this case, for stacked cross sections only, I know that this is part of the TxDOT standard cross section preferences. So let's use this, and let's see what happens here. So I'm going to load this, and if you noticed, my start and stop station stayed the same, and some information here got updated. So let's just see what happens when I just load my preference, and let's see what happens when I cut these cross sections. So you give it a name here. It's fine. So we'll just hit apply and see what happens. So now we have our cross sections here. And if you, so what OpenRoads does is when you cut cross sections, it automatically makes a model with the name of sections. So if you can see here, this was the name of our cross sections, and there's our model. So an easy way to navigate these cross sections and to know what is inside this model is to use the, if you go to Geopack Road Cross Section Navigator, then you'll be able to see which stations are in this model, and you'll be able to easily click through and see what's happening with these cross sections. So, and if you zoom in here to these points, they have little X's on them, and so for some reason this one doesn't show up, so this isn't good, but at least these have it, and the other side has it. So what about this one? Yeah, for some reason this isn't showing up. So but what this is telling us is that these points have feature definitions, and what this means is that we'll be able to annotate the cross sections. So that's the main thing. That's the main reason why there's an X here, because in the template it has feature definitions. So I don't think it'll be that helpful if I just show you what some of these things do, because it just takes it takes a lot of time checking to see what best fits your project and the cross sections that you want to cut. But I will show you the most important ones. So so now that we just cut our first set of cross sections, let's go to the preferences that I made for this project, and let's actually get some cross sections on sheets for this little segment that we just made from 960 to 970. And then we can also annotate the cross section and get earthwork, and it'll be all on the same sheet. So, but one thing I want to check too before I do that is I want to check in the template to see if this actually doesn't have a feature definition, because sometimes this point will have a feature definition, but for some reason it doesn't show up. So that's just how the software is sometimes. Sometimes it doesn't, for some reason it doesn't notice it. So let's go to the template library just to make sure that we didn't mess up. Ah, you see? So it is. So it isn't on a feature definition. So that's the exact reason why it wasn't showing there. So if I come here and choose whichever feature definition, so this doesn't really matter. That's fine. I choose it, then hit apply, then I'll go to this one, and there we go. So now we found out our problem. So now when we make these changes and we close and save the library, then we'll need to make sure to come back to the default, come back to our model, and we'll need to make sure to synchronize with the library so that the next time we cut cross sections, then it's actually gonna read that point. It's actually gonna see that point. So we can even test it now, and we'll see how that works. So I'm gonna cut more cross sections, create cross sections, locate alignment, and let's see where this goes here. So then I'm gonna this time I'm gonna use the preferences for the sheets, and this is the preferences US 67. And I can provide these preferences to you if you to y'all if you need it, because it can be a pain finding out what all this stuff means. So if we load these, then we noticed here the sheet got populated, and that's good. So here's also a really important point that I want to share with you, and it's if you come here to custom, then you can create settings for a certain station range or these other options types to cut cross sections. So basically what I use this for is if I have, well, I usually have settings for just the roadway, right? Because if I import my custom settings, then I don't need to input this information here. So if I have custom settings, then it's always going to read what's in the custom settings. But what I use it for is for the roadway cross sections, I have one custom settings. Then I also use it for culverts and culvert layouts. So you can come here and choose if the station that you want to cut at is perpendicular or if it's skewed. And this is how I add the culvert layout cross sections if we are doing that. So you give it a station, the offsets, and the skew, and then you hit add. Then it's going to apply here, and then you just end up saving as and saving these custom settings somewhere that you know where they are. So anytime you need to cut cross sections, you can just import those, and then it'll store whichever cross section you saved. So it can save you a lot of time if you take the time to just add the cross sections that you cut on a normal basis.
Hey Trey, this is Rafael. You can also do that with the graphic element shown on your section if it's on a skew, correct?
Yes, I believe you can, but I haven't actually done that, so I'm not I mean, I'm sure you can do it, but I just haven't had any experience with that.
Okay, yeah, because I mean, sometimes if the skew is off a little bit, it's hard for you to get the right skew on your, table there that it's asking you what the skew is. I mean,
yeah.
So yeah, okay.
Okay. So you can choose here the custom settings. Then you can give the. I'll just quickly go over these. You can give the sections per column that you want. And this is the distance between columns of sections. And so what I've noticed here in the direction is I've actually had problems when I've done bottom to top, or top to bottom. So bottom to top means that it's going to start at the bottom and then increase your sections going that way. And then top to bottom is obviously it's going to start at top and then go to the bottom. But the top to bottom, I notice that when I'm annotating the cross sections, there seems to be some kind of glitch to where it throws off your elevations. So I would be aware of this, and maybe it only happens to me, but maybe it doesn't. So I would just be aware and cautious when using top to bottom. So all these other settings are. I won't go into these, but I'll make sure that you understand that here is where you choose your border for your sheet. So I just made a cell that is titled text.border, and then here are some settings. Here are some settings for where your cross sections will go relative to the border. So you can play with this and get it exactly how you want. So let's go ahead and cut these sheets, and let's see how it works. So let me make sure these are the right settings, preferences. Then let's go apply. So now here we have our sheets, and So I did use a vertical exaggeration of 2, and this can be changed if you wanted to. You could use 1. Sometimes I do use 1, and then it'll look like this. So as you see here, it gives you the offsets, negative and positive from your center line here. It gives you the station, elevation, and just by changing the settings in these folders here, then you can get everything exactly how you want. So maybe I'll go back to the vertical. Let's go back to this one. This is the 2 vertical exaggeration, and let's go and check to see. Okay, look at this. So now that we applied our feature definition, now this these cross sections have the points for the berm. So now we'll be able to annotate these. So now let's go into annotating cross sections. So if we go here to annotate cross sections, then you have here where you pick your cross section model. And in this case, we're in US 67 centerline sheets. So click on that, and you'll come to your preferences, and you'll either make them or you'll have preset ones that you've already made or that come straight from TextDoc. So I like to make some just because it gives me more control. So if I want to do an offset, an elevation call out, then I'll use this one that's loaded. And what things you need to know about when annotating cross sections is, let's see what this is. So if you want to annotate a point, like an offset and elevation, then you'll need to make sure that you're using the features, and you'll need to make sure that this box is checked, include features. And then you have these options here where you can choose the level and all this information, your text height and spacing and all that stuff. And so you can change that for the offset and elevation too. And you can have a prefix, so if you wanted something to say offset here, let's do offset. And so let's keep that, then you can change the precision if you wanted to for some reason. Then if we come to annotate, then here we can see all the points that we're able to annotate. And you can either pick these points, or let's hit apply and see what happens. So now here we have our cross sections annotations with exactly what we put, the elevation and offset for the prefix, and so this looks pretty nice. But if I do a Control-Z, come back to these settings, and I want to show you that if for some reason you didn't know the point name, then you can come here to this little cursor, and then you can snap to the point, and it'll choose that point. So if I want to choose another one, pick that. So it's a pretty cool way to choose the points that you want to annotate if you don't exactly know the name of it. And we can see that these elevations make sense relative to our elevation callout, right? This is 48, 48, 35. It looks below 50. It's like in the middle of 45 and 50, and the offset looks correct. So this all looks right. And so okay, let's go do Control Z again. Let's select all the points that we want to annotate. Image shoulder. So these all should be it. This one. Okay, so this all looks good. And so now that we have the elevation and offset annotations, you can also do the slopes for the different slopes, and you'll either load your settings, which I have here, and when you're annotating slopes, you'll need to make sure to have this include segments in the segments folder here. So if I come here, then I have it separated for my preferences, that if I'm going to be annotating the features, then I have separate settings than when I'm annotating the segments and slopes. You can have a lot more control that way, so that's why I do it. But you can choose whatever you want to do. So here's the same. It's the same little dialog. You can give the change the slope precisions, and change the settings for the slope, and exactly the same information here. This text size and horizontal and vertical offsets for your annotations. So if we come to annotate and we choose this segment here, so let's choose this one, and then let's choose this, and then we hit apply, then we see that it's giving our slope of 3 to 1 here, and it actually does it for the entire cross section set. So you can see that. So then we'll just come here and add these other segments here. Let's do this one. And another thing to kind of be aware of is I usually choose each segment and annotate them separately, because if you choose all the points that apply to your segments, then sometimes it can get weird, and so that's why I just like to keep them separate. So let's pick these points for each segment here. Let's annotate those. Then, oh yeah, I guess I didn't talk about this, but here you can click either select all or select none. So it's pretty nice to have. So if I click the last slope, then we can have those annotated. So that's pretty much it for annotating. And so now let's talk about the earthwork. So if I come here right next to the annotate cross sections, we can do in area volume, and this just means earthwork. So here's where it shows you the existing terrain, and then the proposed model that we're using, right? So here's the interface for the cross sections, and there's different settings here that you can choose. Like you can, for some reason, if you needed to add quantities, then you could, and it's just settings that you'll need to go in yourself to look at and see how it best applies to your project. But so you can also have preferences for your earthwork here too. And if I come to the preferences that I made for this project, then I'll load these. And we can also create a XML report too. And I usually like to do this. So, because if you're cutting a whole bunch of cross sections, then I like to use it just to have it in an Excel table so we can manipulate it and get it into sheets as well, or get it into the not sheets, but for our quantities. So I already loaded the preferences. So let's just run this and see what happens. Let's see. So if we run the earthwork, then we see we have these options here. I mainly look at the basic volume report or the earthwork. No, which one is it? The end area volume. I mainly look at these, but you can use this if you wanted to. You can copy this and put it in Excel if you needed to. It's nice to have. I think it's really nice to have. So then if we can get rid of this, then if we turn on our fill, then wait, why isn't this showing? So let me go back. So what should happen is, oh, okay, I think I know what happened. So what I think happened here, let me see, is I'm pretty sure I didn't pick the correct model for this earthwork. But this comes up again. Yeah, easy. So I think I picked this one. So let's go to the first section that I cut, and let's see if it gave earthwork on that one. Let's see. Yeah. So you see, and this will happen sometimes too. So it's good to know that you just need to make sure that you pick the correct model when doing earthwork. But if you see here, it gives you the fill location and the cut location, and these can change the transparency because that's how it comes. I'm sure you can change these settings to where it plots exactly how you want it the first time. But here we can see that this is the earthwork done for these cross sections, and here are the quantities for those cross sections. But if I go to the sheets, then let's make sure to do it actually to the sheets. So if I go to end area volume, then where is it? So if I go to this to the earthwork tab, and then I go to make sure that I'm on the correct model, load the preferences, then when I apply the cross sections, then now we can see that we do have the fill just like on the just like on the previous sections. And here it gives you the quantities, and it's so I usually on my cross-section border I have a call out or a piece of text here that says embankment and fill, so you know which one it is. And but this can all, or the way this displays can all be changed and updated from this annotation tab here. So this is probably well, this is the main tab that you would use to change where these annotations display and how actually the shape displays too. The shape of cut or fill. So if y'all want, I can send some preferences just to make it easier on y'all. And but I think that should be it for now. And then if anyone has any questions, then they can bring those up.